Hello everyone and welcome to 100 Days in Ark Survival Evolved. Now, I am not the first person to do this challenge, obviously. If you somehow haven't heard of Luke the Notable or Zanny Zebra, what the hell are you doing here? Go check out their channels, the links will be in the description. Now, this will not be a hardcore attempt as I suck at Ark. However, I do hope you enjoy. And if you do, maybe throw a like or subscribe my way. It would be greatly appreciated. All the support I can get for this series would be incredible. Anything helps. Now real quick, there is only one rule I have to this series. If I die 3 times, I cannot take anything with me off the island. Nothing at all. No dinos, no tames, no blueprints. Anyway, let's get into the action. Sit down, get a snack or a drink, and enjoy. As we woke up on a rocky shore, we scratched our arm, stood up, and looked around to take in our environment. Now, South Zone 1, while an easy spawn, isn't exactly the safest, so our first course of action was to pick up a few rocks and punch a tree. However, punching said tree also gave us our first level, and of course, being the somewhat sensible person I am, I decided to put that first level into movement speed, because chances are I would be needing a lot of it. After applying the level I got, I did make an astute observation. I see Dilo over there. After gathering some more wood and thatch, as well as some flint, I was able to craft my first axe. It's a shame, because it's a lot quieter than the other one I was using. Day 1 was going to go relatively easily, at least that's what I thought. But as we all know, Ark can change that up in a literal split second. I looked around, gathered some food, and eventually started to make my way to the place that I was going to set up a small but temporary base, as I didn't want to stay around South Zone 1 for too long. But I may have gotten a little bit distracted before I could get there. As you can imagine, that didn't go all too well for me. Until you go to sleep, I'm not giving up. There's some bait. I'm gonna die to a fucking fly. God damn it. Yeah, you know how I said you'd see how having 3 lives went for me? Yeah, as you can probably tell now, it didn't go too well. On day 1, I had already lost my first life to a Dilo. Scratch that, to 2 Dilos. Something that I usually tame and just forget about. So after recrafting a few of the items I had lost, I went back to where the Dilos had killed me. I managed to kill one of them and knock another one of them out before I went to regather all the stuff I had lost when I died. After gathering my stuff from when I died, I went to the Dilo I knocked out and put some meat in its inventory to actually tame it. While I was waiting for it to tame, I stumbled across the level 80 I had lost, and I actually managed to knock that out as well. While I was waiting for the level 80 to tame, I decided to shoot the little goose thing that came out of the water here, and it decided it wanted to have beef with me after.
Stop! You violated the law!
You can cease now. After the level 80 was tamed, I went back on my way to where we would be building our temporary base. However, I did spot a dodo on the way there and decided to punch it until it fell asleep. However, before the dodo tamed, I felt an ominous presence behind me. Oh my god. There was a Titanosaurus where I would be basing. Not in the direct vicinity, mind you, but on the same cliff face, and that was not going to fly, because if it was to fly, my base would not be anywhere to be seen, because that thing would come stomp it over. Despite the lumbering beast that was currently trying to Skyrim its way up the cliff again, I decided to head up to the location I'd be basing on to get my dinos somewhere safe before I attempted to deal with the problem at hand. As I made my way to where I'd be basing temporarily, I kept looking over my shoulder. Obviously, I couldn't get over the fact that that thing could come stomp me over at any second, so I decided I would at least try to lure it away once I had my dinos in a safer location. After I had my tames in a safe location where I'd be building, I decided to rush straight down to the beach to try and get this thing's attention before I managed to get all the way up here. I suck with slingshots, I really do. So it took me a few more rocks than I would have liked to hit the giant, Titanosaur that's right in front of me. You think I wouldn't be able to miss it, right? But hey, I did. After briefly reverting back into an ape, I managed to lure the Titanosaur farther towards the left side of the main spawn island. And I was planning to lead him further towards the jungle, but I decided it was best to leave him where he was at the time. I'd rather leave him there, where he won't be any trouble to me, than lead him somewhere and risk him wandering back up to my base eventually. Upon returning back to the base location, I decided to start chopping down a few trees. I did need some materials to build, a base after all, so that's what I decided to get working on. Oh no. And the ship shack is complete. And just like that, the first day was over with. I died. I tamed one of the dilos that killed me, I tamed a dodo, and I got a shit shack set up. Not to mention, I also got, chased by a giant endgame dinosaur in one of the easiest zones of the game, so, that's fun. After I built my base, I decided to go and knock out a parasaur and actually tame it. And after a little bit of waiting, the parasaur was finally mine. After taming the parasaur, I brought it back home, and when I was back home, there wasn't exactly a lot to do. So I decided to pass the time, I'd breed my dilos. As the dilos were popping out an egg, I decided to go and find my dodo little lady friend, and after a bit of looking around, I did actually manage to tame a female dodo. Where do you think you're going? Once I got home, I threw my new dodo in the soon-to-be dodo pen, and after doing so, I decided to actually go start getting materials to make said pen. After a little bit of construction and a few interruptions to get more materials to continue said construction, the dodo pen was finally complete, which meant I could finally have the giant chickens on wandering. But before I put them on wandering, I decided to make the two dodos mate so they could end up producing another dodo for my egg farm that I would be having in the future. And while they were doing that, I then decided to go and get some stone to make a mortar and pestle. And yes, I do know at this point in time it says day 2 in the inventory, but I am counting the days as in from sunrise to the next sunrise. So currently, to me, it is still day 1. After crafting the mortar and pestle, I also crafted myself a bed. So I went back to base and decorated my house a little bit. It's a little tilted, but it doesn't really matter. This place isn't going to be a permanent base anyway. My base was actually starting to feel like home. Using my newly furnished mortar and pestle, I decided to craft myself some narcotics, as I would be needing some in the near future. After crafting said narcotics, I was able to finally craft myself a bow, which would be invaluable in the days to come. After occupying myself with various miscellaneous activities throughout the night, the dawn of day 2 had finally arrived. We had survived 1 day on the island. We have 99 more to go. As I reached level 17, I was planning to pipe up a bunch of water to my base, but in order to do so, I had to unlock the blueprints, which, mind you, wasn't difficult given the fact that I had a lot of XP and a lot of engrams to spend. However, the fun part was going to be piping all the water up to my base. So that's what I got started on. I got started on the very annoying process of piping water all the way from the shore up to my base, and suffice to say, I was not enjoying it. This is going to be a long and annoying process. However, before I could finish the pipeline, something may have interrupted me.
Oh no!
Oh, Jesus Christ. So yeah, I died a second time, and I lost another life, so I was down to 1. However, you will see that this death doesn't really stick due to some technical difficulties down the line, but you'll know it when you see it. Oh yeah, you know how I said that the last death didn't really stick? This is how it didn't. My save got reverted because apparently I didn't exit off properly when I quit last time. So we lost the pipeline, but we also lost our last death, which means we still have 2 lives. But don't worry, I still somehow managed to screw having 2 lives up in the future. Don't worry, it's gonna be fun. So after rebuilding the first section of the pipeline, I did find the raptor that originally killed me. This time it seemed to spawn in as a regular raptor, and I bullied it. I originally wanted to tame it, but I decided not to tame it, simply just because it'd be too easy. I knew where it was, I knew what level it was, and I knew how to tame it, so I just decided to kill it instead. So after I finished the pipeline, I went back to base, I placed 2 foundations, and then I placed the straight water pipe. Now all I needed was the faucet and a few small crop plots. After placing the foundations, I went inside and placed the preserving bin that I had crafted while building the pipeline. Afterwards, I crafted a forge and placed it on the right side of my base when facing the door. This was a monumental step for me, as it would allow me to upgrade from stone tools to metal ones. You hobnobbler. You hobnobbler. Seriously. The first important event of day 3 was my second attempt to try and tame a trike, and this time I actually did manage to succeed, though it did take a while. Let's find out. So after the trike was tamed, I put its saddle on, mounted it, and waddled it back to base. Once I got home, I finally crafted myself a crossbow. So now I was able to do decent damage without an actual tame there to help me. To test out my crossbow, I decided to go try and find a Pteranodon tame, and luckily for me, there seemed to be a rather high level one just sort of milling around my base. After waiting pretty much all day, the Pteranodon was finally tamed, and it was a level 90 at tame, so that meant it got quite a big stat buff. It only, took the entirety of day 3 pretty much. As I waited for night to pass on day 3, I got a little bit bored, so I went down to the water to see if I could try and tame an ichthy. After I got back on track and headed down to the beach, it took a little bit of time, but I was able to tame an ichthy, which I gave the most appropriate of names. You shall be the first thing I name. Friend. Afterwards, I ended up finding another monkey, and I actually was able to tame this one. I was so happy. Yes! Yes! Come to me. I did tame a raptor too, but let's face it, that's not nearly as important as the monkey. However, before I really had time to celebrate, tragedy struck. Raptor, no. Well, that's inconvenient. Please don't. Oh my god. No, you don't. Fuck you. So I died. Before even day 5 hit, I had lost both lives. I died twice to the same Therizino. The deaths of every tame I had to hold dear meant I only had one thing that I needed to do left before I could get onto the road of recovery. I was going to take the head of that goddamn tickle chicken and parade it around my base like a trophy. Oh, that's inconvenient. There it is. That's my cue. It took a little while, but I managed to knock the big bastard out. Now I had to deal with a little bit of a struggle I had. I originally wanted to kill it, but by now, common sense had begun to sit in, and I had managed to knock out a level 90 Therizino. I didn't have many dinos left to protect myself if I wanted to venture inland, so I struggled a bit with the idea whether I wanted to tame it or not. Ultimately, I decided on taming the Therizino because I kind of needed the manpower as is at the moment. However, while I was waiting for it to tame, I did end up taming myself another Parasaur to gather berries with since I had lost my other one. However, while I waited for my Parasaur to tame, I ended up losing friend to a few Mega Piranhas in the river that it spawned. During the dawn of day 5, I tamed myself another raptor. It had been all night and the Therizino had still not tamed, so I was just trying to bide my time while waiting for it to tame. After a couple more dozens of narcotics were crafted, a few loot drops were opened, and the entire daylight cycle of day 5 was over, we had finally tamed the Therizino, and of course I gave it the most dignified of names after. There we go. After flying around through the night of day 5 and collecting a few drops, I decided to keep flying around and look for a high-level Argentavis to tame. Mind you, I didn't have the items on me to tame it, but I figured it'd be a good idea to know where one was so I could tame it once I had the saddle. However, after a little bit of flying around, my search for an Argentavis was interrupted by a certain someone spawning on the most metal-rich mountain in the game. Oh, hello, you're a lot higher of a level than usual. You are Angie boy. After a little bit more flying around, I happened across a few Argentavis, and one of them actually piqued my interest. So of course, after finding a level 120 Argentavis, I decided to hightail it home. However, my flight home didn't go as planned. That's unfortunate. So day 6 was off to a great start. So I made myself some chitin armor, grabbed Miss Numgit, and made my way back into the redwood. After wandering for nearly 45 minutes, I had gotten lost, and unfortunately my bad luck caught up to me once again. After respawning and hopping on my raptor, it took a little bit of time before I found where I had died, but eventually I did find where I died the second time. After stumbling around for a short while longer, I managed to find my Pteranodon and where I had died. However, unfortunately, before I could save it, it did die. So I got my stuff, got my Pteranodon saddle, and went back home. Through the night of day 6, I turned my failed trap into a memorial for all the dinos I had lost. I attempted to use it. So on the morning of day 7, I held a service for all of them. After that heartwarming service, I went out, tamed another Pteranodon, and flew back home. So on the dawn of day 8, we found ourselves up by the volcano once more. This time we were building ourselves a trap to try and trap an Argentavis to tame. Unfortunately, the level 120 we had seen previously was killed by a Therizino, so we were stuck with a much lower level. It took damn near all of day 8 to tame this Argentavis, and then it took the rest of the night of day 8 to get back to base. The first task for day 9 was taming myself a pair of frogs, simply for the fact that I wanted to be able to breed them to get an imprinted one for collecting cementing paste. Taming the first one had a few difficulties. Please don't fall asleep. I really don't want to fall asleep right now. Ah, god damn it. After they were both tamed, I brought them down to the river near my base, and I put them in the water so they could breed. After the egg hatched, I went and picked up a beaver that I had found when I was scouring for a new base location. After picking it up with my Argentavis, I brought it home and knocked it out and waited for it to tame. Afterwards, I went into the redwood forest, grabbed an Anki and brought it home and tranked it. After the Anki was knocked out, I went down to the river and imprinted on my baby frog. Once that was said and done, I was able to lure 2 female Argentavis into the trap at the end of day 10. On the morning of day 11, we tamed the level 60. Day 11 pretty much just consisted of me breeding the Argentavis once I got back to base, taming a Dodic, and actually going up to the Arctic on my frog to go get some polymer because I wanted to make some cryopods. After I got home, I hatched the Argentavis egg that my 2 other birds had laid. Once it was hatched, I named the baby Ava, and she actually had a color scheme that was quite nice. I then went and crafted, I believe it was 5 cryopods. However, the cryopods were not the best part of this day. I have friend again. I had tamed myself another monkey friend, and after I tamed it, we went to the new base location and began to build the landing pad for our flyers. It was amazing. The rest of day 12, as well as pretty much the majority of day 13 and 14, was spent building the landing pad. However, it did get done roughly halfway through day 14. The process of building the base was taking a while, so to keep myself entertained while doing so, I tamed the Tapihara that was stuck in the rock over here, and then I tamed myself a Megaloceros with it. It took until the morning of day 16, but we had finally gotten the first floor of the main base finished. It took until day 17 until the entire house structure was finished, and after it was finished, I then built a few forges and placed them on the landing pad, and then I placed my smithy. So on day 18, we built ourselves a fabricator and placed a generator. However, the footage of me getting said fabricator was corrupted, so you don't get to see that. So after that, we started to get the kitchen set up with a outlet as well as a refrigerator. I wanted to tame a dire bear. Not only did I want to tame a dire bear because they're an incredibly good combat mount, but because I wanted to have one for caving as well, so that's what we did next. We were able to trap a level 115 dire bear. So yeah, suffice to say, I was happy. However, before I could knock the bear out, I realized it was rather low on health, so I decided to just leave it until I could come back with trank darts. It wasn't going to be going anywhere. Day 20 wasn't very eventful. I ended up taming an otter because I wanted him for caving, and I named him Ozzy. That's pretty much it. I love this guy. I had never tamed an otter before, and he was so goddamn adorable that it made me want to tame another one. I looked around for a bit, but I just settled on him because I couldn't find any more. Day 21, I was back at the dire bear with enough tranq darts to actually knock it out this time, but I think it saved how much torpidity it had when it unrendered, so it only took a few. It didn't take quite as long as I thought it would for the bear to starve, so I ended up taming it relatively quickly, and after we tamed it, we brought it back to base. Days 22 and 23 were pretty much just spent by me going on various different metal runs, because I wanted to build myself an industrial forge before I started preparing for anything serious. And I also expanded the landing pad to accommodate for it. While I waited for the metal to smelt down for my industrial forge, I went out looking for T-Rexes, because I decided if I could find low enough levels and kill them early enough, I might be able to get a decent high-level breeding pair before day 50. Unfortunately, during my search, the most impressive Rex I found was an alpha, so obviously I couldn't tame that. So I just headed back home, and when I got there, I crafted my industrial forge. God, that's amazing. And just as night began to fall, I lit the industrial forge for the very first time. Okay. The beacon to our success has finally arrived. Afterwards, I spent some time shooting some innocent animals in the face and clubbing their dead bodies. Why did I do this? I don't know. I don't know why I needed the polymer. Apparently, I just felt like killing something. As day broke, I saw a ringed yellow loot drop spawning in near my base, so obviously I went to check it out. Oh, that is tasty. I went out and tamed another dire bear. She was level 60, but it was better than, the level 20s that were around. It took all night to tame, but just as dawn broke, it finally finished taming. After a bit of time passed and I bred the two dire bears, they finally popped out a baby, which I named, of course, the most appropriate of names for a bear, albeit not the most creative. Day 25 was a rather important day, as it marked the quarter waypoint of our 100 days journey. And to celebrate the fact that I had managed to keep interest in this long enough, I decided to go out and kill that Alpha Rex that I saw earlier. So we managed to kill it. I mean, Ava almost died doing it, but we did manage to kill it. All for a ramshackle iron pickaxe. Near the tail end of day 25, I tried to go tame a level 85 Rex that I had found near the redwood, but as you'll see, some things didn't quite go my way. So after I went back and got my shit, I decided to continue trying to tame the Rex, and, well, that wasn't a very bright decision. Okay. So yeah, no! I died and lost another monkey. This time I lost Tang. So yeah, that's fun. So I went back to the Rex that killed me and knocked the asshole out, but before I could start taming it, this happened. Of course. The taming effectiveness was shot, so I decided to just build a trap around it and let it sit to wake up. While I did wait for it to wake up, I went out and tamed a Thyla, just because I wanted something for caving. So after the Thyla was tamed, I went back to where I had kept the Rex locked up. Unfortunately, it had escaped, and I didn't have enough tranq arrows ultimately, so I decided to just head back home. Day 28 was pretty much just me looking for a replacement for Tang, since I had lost yet another monkey friend, and then building a tree platform and placing it to collect sap, though it didn't really serve much of a purpose through the first 50 days, as you will see. Hey, future off the charts here. I wanted to apologize if you notice any dip in quality for the commentary, especially because I got sick during the last half of the 50 days. I also got my braces on at the same time. Wait 18 years just to get braces right before you do a bunch of recording, right? Yeah, that's fun. Oh, look, well, I remember why I needed to get the sap now, because apparently on day 29, I decided I wanted to do some fishing. Because I thought, hey, fishing has a chance of giving you blueprints, and I could use some of those right now. Yeah, it didn't go well. So after nearly an hour of no success with fishing, I decided to actually build a greenhouse. Why did I choose to do this? I don't know. It wasn't really of any value. I just got bored, I guess. After finishing the greenhouse, my next task was to go down to the cave at the foot of the volcano and tame a dung beetle. I found 2, but I ended up taming the lower level. Before I left, however, I did grab our first artifact. Up next was looking for a Megatherium to tame, and I had basically no luck looking for it. I did kill Alpha Carno, though. It gave me a Journeyman Metal Pickaxe. So that was a little bit of a win, I guess. Since I couldn't find a Megatherium, I decided to bring home a Demon Pig, because I would need them for healing my dinos in between boss fights. So once it was home, I tranked it and just sort of waited for it to tame. I again went out looking for a Megatherium, though this time I actually did find one in the redwood near my base. It was only a level 70, but I decided to get it over with and trap it because, hey, level 70 is better than nothing. Waiting for the Megatherium to tame, I went back to base, grabbed my bush costume, and then decided to go out and get some honey to actually tame this thing a bit faster. After taming this Megatherium, I decided to go out and press my luck to try and find another, because I did need a female for breeding for the broodmother. And of course, my luck caught up to me and I got pounced yet again. Luckily, somehow I managed to escape by the skin of my teeth, until I got pounced again. Yeah, I was getting pretty sick of the redwood. Yeah, look at this. I spent the entire remaining half of day 32 looking for my dead body. Like, I could not find it. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Whoa, why are we on day 35 already? What the hell happened to days 33 and 34? Well, funny story about that. My recording software didn't notify me that I was out of storage space. So days 33 and 34 never recorded. But we got a lot done in them. As you can see, we're breeding Megatherium now. That's a thing. Shiny stuff. Destroy the child. Corrupt them all. Drugs. Drugs as far as the eye can see. The search for an egg chomper. Chomper located. The army continues to grow. And finally, on day 37, we marked the caves of importance. We mark a grave for our fallen friend. The crates of metal provide better space for our horde. Upon the morning of day 38, we arrived at the Cave of the Hunter to collect the relic that we required. Ozzy was with us, so we were able to collect it 3 times. We then did the same for the relic of the Massive and the relic of the Clever. Day 39, the army was growing at an incredible rate. However, before we could even think of doing the Broodmother boss fight, we needed to find ourselves a Tyrannus. Unfortunately, it wasn't until day 40 that we actually started to look for one. And oh my god, was this process infuriating. I had to have trapped at least 3, maybe 4 Utis before I actually managed to tame one, and for some reason they all just kept dying. Like, I was so unlucky through this process. But thankfully, by the night of day 42, I had managed to tame a Tyrannus. Upon the dawn of day 43, we picked up our Daedon with our bird and flew over to the Green Obelisk to begin preparations for our first boss fight. I was going to test the waters with the Gamma Broodmother. I had no reservations of if my Megatherium were going to be able to beat the Gamma Broodmother because I've beaten her before, but I wanted to get them the levels from both the Gamma and the Beta before I fought the Alpha. So after throwing out each Megatherium from the cryopod and making sure they were fully healed, it was day 45 that we initiated our first battle with the Broodmother on Gamma difficulty. However, I didn't account for one thing. I had brought more than 20 tames. Go get them, I guess. If I had known this would happen, I would have brought in a crossbow. With no losses, nonetheless. Oh my god, you guys are incredible. Come here. Despite the absence of my Tyrannus, we were able to claim a victory over the Gamma Broodmother. Mind you, not the biggest achievement we'll have to go through to get through 100 days, but it was still good enough for me. And once we returned back to base on day 46, we mounted the head of the Gamma Broodmother at the entrance to our base. From day 46, it was a mad dash to prepare the Megatherium to take on the beta broodmother before day 50 hit. Once they were all healed and I removed one Megatherium from the batch because I didn't want a repeat of what happened with the gamma, we went in to face the beta. Okay, I actually managed to bring you in with me this time. Okay, let's hope this works. Oh, that's not good. Yes! This battle was much closer, but in the end, we had managed to defeat both the Gamma and the Beta. However, we had 3 more days to go, and I had to prepare for the Alpha. So that's exactly what I did. I bred more Megatherium, crafted saddles for them to wear, and then once we had moved them over to the green obelisk, we sent the new recruits into the Gamma to give them a few extra levels. Having slain the Gamma for a second time, we warped out of the arena on the dawn of day 51. We had survived 50 days in Ark, but our journey was far from done. Up next was the Alpha Broodmother.